Hello.
Hello!
How are you doing today?
I'm doing okay, Allie. How are
Excellent.
you?
I'm good. Are you ready to talk about some A5E?
A5 Eve during A5 Evening. Who do we got
Excellent.
tonight?
We have, I believe, Peter Martin coming to co-host with us. I'm really excited to talk to Peter tonight.
Me too.
Um,
Peter is the reason why I started publishing in the first place, so I'm very excited to have him
Excellent. I didn't know that.
here.
So perfect.
Yes.
Cool. Well, I'm excited because I used some of his stuff you told me. His archetype for Berserker, the Bringer of Bedlam, is very fun to play. So I'm
Yep.
really excited by that. And then our next guest is Jim Temple.
Yep. Jim Temple of Variant Codex Press. He's a slightly newer third party publisher. He's been basically publishing a little before me, even though I entered the community a little before him. He's just a little faster than me. So,
Well, fair enough. Well, he's got a couple of things that we're going to talk about today. The first one is the Pod Person Plague, and then I think we're going to touch on Roadworthy Pursuits.
Roadworthy Pursuits, he's
Beautiful.
putting out an expanded edition. Roadworthy Pursuits came out several months ago, and Jim has worked to expand it and make it a definitive edition. So we're going to talk to him about that a little bit.
Awesome. So, shall we get into it?
Let's get into it. Folks, welcome to A5 Evening with guests tonight, Jim Temple and Peter Martin. As always, I am Grant, a third-party A5E creator behind Broken Synapse Press. I'm also an A5E narrator and the unofficial data gremlin for the A5E system. Joining me, as always, is...
Allie. Hi, everybody. I'm a player and huge fan and excited to be a part of today. And just as a disclaimer, I apologize for any cats wandering through. Please don't be too distracted.
As a special disclaimer for this episode, which I should have included in the last episode, is about what I get comped for and what I purchase. Basically, I purchase every single thing that I talk about on this show, that we talk about on this show. The only one who gives me comp copies is Peter, for services rendered as that data gremlin.
And it's a bargain.
Uh,
You and the rest of the data team provide us with a lot of useful information that saves a ton of time. So,
And it is no longer just me or Clark Peterson. Jim Temple, one of our guests tonight, is actually on that Data Gremlin team as well as Jen will. She is going to guest, I think, in 2 months' time, and she is the third
Cool.
tonight.
So we have Peter Martin with Purple Martin Games. Is that right?
yep.
Perfect. And then Jim Temple with Variant Codex Press. Header and
Yeah.
Peter, do you want to tell us just a little bit about yourself and Purple Martin?
Sure. I guess I'm probably the most prolific third-party publisher for Level Up Advanced 5e. Didn't really set out to do that, but that's how it turned out. Behind things like the Manual of Adventurous Resources, multi-classers manuals, thematic toolkits, single-class synergy, spells from the Forgotten Vault, various and sundry other things.
Including some fun April Fool's release.
Yes,
Well.
Broom
Yeah.
Knight and the Riding Vegetable and
Right.
various other. I think it's just those two,
I
but
think it's just those two, but yeah,
yeah,
it's just the same. So,
yeah.
and Jim, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and Variant Codex Press?
Sure. So I'm Jim Temple, Variant Codex Press, just about to release our third product. So far, they've been kind of exploration focused. This one's going to be kind of a horror themed product, covers a lot of ground. We'll get into that later, but that's me. And then Data Gremlin Jr.
Fair enough. Well, thank you very much. So we're switching the format around a little bit from the first episode this time, folks. Today we are starting with the first party roundup for June. This is our section of the show where we cover any EN publishing releases that came out since basically the last episode. The big one that we have released now is Gate Pass Gazette number 40 for June. We kind of slightly previewed it in the last episode, but we came out, Gate Pass Gazettes usually come out around the 10th of the month, so now we have access to it. So first up is an article by Andrew Englebright, Sneaky Tactics Rogue Class Features. And this basically is a collection of additional options that vastly expands. So in A5E, we all know that a lot of class features give choices. when you pick them. So there's always a meaningful decision to be made any level up. A lot of those choices in the Adventurer's Guide started with about 3 options that players could choose from. The new pattern, especially being spearheaded by Andrew, is taking those collections of options from each class feature that gives you one of those choices and blowing them way the heck up. So starting with combat tactics, which is the second level feature for rogues, we go from a total that existed in the AG from 3 to now there are 23.
See, data gremlin.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. We've been busy, folks.
Also, it's worth noting Andrew Engelbright is the guy behind the wielder class, the new version of the fighter, the new version of the druid, the artificer. He's done a lot. So
he is prolific as well. And
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
wielder, as I mentioned last episode, is probably my favorite class for any 5e system that's currently out there. A5e, O5e, 5e24, any of that. A wielder is just dynamite. So if Andrew wants to take it about himself to kind of blow up all the core classes and make them give us more options for him, I think he's the guy to do it. So
yeah, none better.
you played a rogue with us.
No, I have played a rogue, but not in the A5E system.
Okay.
It does seem very fun, though. I do love a rogue.
Sure.
Sneak attack.
Yes, and so the combat tactics that Andrew created, they kind of all play with other features of the rogue, but kind of make you can be choose to be, instead of, I believe the 3 original combat tactics for rogue were Carver, Ambusher.
I was remembering Carver, so
everybody I had 2 rogues in the last little mini campaign I wrote, and both of them took Carver. But
Okay.
yeah,
Extra damage is always good.
extra damage is always good. But these options take it, and you can replace Carver with something like Bruiser, where you do more damage with basic combat maneuvers and the like. You can be
The 3 base ones are ambusher, carver, and sniper.
Oh, that's
Oh.
close.
sniper.
I forgot about a ranged rogue. That's right. And then, not content to just stop at adding 20 new combat tactics, Andrew added 4 new options for Innocent Facade, which is the 4th level rogue feature. New options for the Self-Preservation, which I believe is the 6th level rogue feature. 3 new options there. And a new class feature option for Low Profile, which is the 10th level feature, and that adds 3 new options. So basically, the whole front end of the core class rogue is now. I'd have to do the quick math on that, but it is way more customizable than it used to be.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
And the other class he did before was the fighter, is that right? Where he did additional options like this?
Yes, in Gate Pass. Ooh, I don't know exactly what Gate Pass Gazette it was, but it was a recent one. He added a bunch of new fighting styles, as well as a bunch of new options for class features like Steely Mine, and basically this. But he also added a bunch of new fighting types, or fighting styles, I should say, that all focus on a specific kind of weapon. If you want to be a fighter who specializes in pole arms, there is a fighting style that will reward you if you take it. And like I said last episode, my absolute favorite new trend in the A5E space. I want us all to do more of this, and just my favorite thing about A5E is, again, you get a meaningful choice at every level, and this just makes that even more meaningful. Obviously, on the other hand, now you can enter into, oh wow, there's so much.
Beware the analysis paralysis.
Exactly. Andrew will also be the featured guest on the late July show to talk his contributions to Alpha Star. Andrew is also working on a new TTRPG system as well, so he will be here to promote that, as well as talk about Alpha Star when that comes out next month.
Cool. Good episode.
Peter, I did want to pick your brain a little bit on that, as the the person who basically ties in features to make synergy feat class chains. I was just wondering if this new trend might kind of, I know you have so many, both in the past and also coming up, but I wondered if this changed your design philosophy at all to how you approach it.
Not really. I tend to lock into the stuff that doesn't change. So when I'm working with rogue levels, for instance, I'll take things like sneak attack, cunning action, the stuff that every single rogue gets, and there's not really a pick. Sometimes when there's a really character defining option like the pact boon for the warlock class, I'll do like a breakout for each of those choices, or the bonded artifact for the wielder, which is why the warlock wielder synergy feat chain in multiclasser's manual has 11 feats in it.
Sure does.
Because I had 2 to start out with, and then 9 based on each combination of pact boon and bonded artifact type. But yeah, usually I have found that it works best when you stick with the stuff that is going to be there regardless of somebody's build. So
that makes sense. Otherwise,
yep.
Otherwise, that's a good way to drive yourself a little around the bend, I bet. So
not only that, but can you imagine like the size of some, like, all right, this is a feat. It has 20 different options for takes up 4 pages, but I swear it's just 1 feat.
Yeah, as a player, Allie, I can't imagine you'd want to be seeing a little bit.
Listen, I already have like 4 spreadsheets going for some of my characters, so.
Jim, any thoughts from you on that? Or any?
I agree with you.
Or you would like to attack maybe as a variant codex thing?
Hadn't really thought about that. This release, as we'll talk about, is kind of my first foray into writing 4 classes. So there are a lot of things that I'm like, I hadn't thought about getting into that. So yeah, it's an interesting, I like you, I like the trend quite a bit. So it's an interesting area to think about. I think I'm probably more excited to see what's next after Rogue than about writing it, but still.
Well, Allie, as a player here, what would you like to see? Anything? I know you're a druid.
I know. I mean, I was gonna say my heart always lies with druid or druid variation. Although I did quite like a berserker the last time.
Sure.
I don't know if we've gone into that at all, but updating that has been, I don't know, I really enjoyed that as a character. Differently than some of the other types of characters I played. I like being tanky and getting in there.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. Cleric options win.
Well, Clark actually put out alternate, so a slight variation on this trend is the alternate features instead of feature options, and he put out an article in another recent Game Pass Gazette for in the show notes where he replaced turn undead because not every campaign has undead.
Yep.
So now there are clerics that can kind of pick and choose what they want to do with their channel divinity option to replace turn undead. If I can run a whole 1 to 20 campaign and forget to put a single undead monster in there. So that's
really, I don't think I can get through a level without using undead. But the little bit of the joke there, though, is that the cleric is already an extremely option-rich class, so it doesn't need to be expanded on as much as some of the other ones do.
Sure, but you all heard it here first. If you're creators, the player in this group. Berserker and Druid.
Right. Listen, I go off vibes, and those are my favorite vibes. So
fair enough.
Or what can I make a bit with that makes me laugh?
Good at those bits. Love it. All right, next part. And again, apologies, this episode is going to be pretty packed, so we're going to kind of go quick, but I do want to give everything its fair shake in the first party roundup. So the second article in Gazette number 40 is one from Mike Myler, Archives of the Sillyfoot Clown College Magic Items. And if you remember Gate Pass Gazette number 19, he introduced that Sillyfoot Clown College as a way to learn the comedic jabs combat tradition, which is a tradition based on comedy and clowning and reversals and things like that.
Now that sounds fun.
Yeah.
That's
I'm
like
actually
something I
surprised
like.
you've never picked that one.
I
up yet.
didn't know it existed until this moment. So be ready for the next campaign.
You got it. That one comes with even a new creature stat block, which is the elusive chicken, a tiny CR0 construct. And more CR0 things are fun in my book. So I like CR0 things and I like CR30 things. Everything in the middle,
Grant starts the campaign and then immediately has all of his players gain 19 levels between sessions 1 and 2.
I'm a simple man, Peter. I just like watching players do cool stuff.
I was trying to say kudos to the name Elusive Chicken. That's just fun.
It's pretty
Yeah.
good. So it's a collection of comedic themed magic items, like various clown props, but they're magic and sometimes violent. It's just a collection. I think there's more than 10 items in there. So
Cool.
if you need more magic items and you like a little bit of silly, that article will do you. And Mike will also be an upcoming guest to talk about myriad A5E projects, including his new massive class book that is coming out.
I believe he was also the project manager for the base system, so he's got lots to say. Well, I mean, Rachel and I have done first-party work too, so we're just freelancers, though, not.
Yes, both you and Jim have done things for the Gate Pass Gazette as well. Peter, have you done one of the bigger books?
I am credited in all 3 core books: the Dungeon Delver's Guide, the Void Runner's Codex. So
That's what I thought.
yeah, I've done a bunch of the first-party stuff. Not all of it, but a bunch of it. So
The list of releases that Peter is not in is much shorter than the list of releases that Peter is in.
running that spreadsheet. That is very true. So, all right, and then a new article from Enzo Salvato, one of our newest members to the third-party community of Awesome Games. Enzo created Born of Stars, the Constellar Heritage, which is a heritage culture and background, all kind of associated with celestial bodies.
It's a really interesting idea.
It is.
His idea for the heritage, just having something come to Earth and kind of, or well, to your planet, and kind of trying to figure out what it is, not knowing anything. It's kind of having that whole like celestial look to its skin. It's really interesting.
I'm just thinking about some of the cool art you can make of your OCs with that, and it'd be
Yeah, absolutely.
I remember the path or the Circle of Stars Druid and seeing some of the art from that guy, and this is just a heritage that you could kind of do that with. So.
yeah, it kind of puts me in mind of the Fallen Exile, I think it was called. It's an O5E book called Compendium of Forgotten Secrets Awakening. It's a bunch of warlock packs. Another kind of star themed thing.
It's
Cool.
very nice, and it's always with heritages. I appreciate that Enzo put in a bunch of Paragon gift choices. There are 4.
Yeah.
Nice.
Also, always good to see like the culture and backgrounds with new heritages too.
Absolutely. Do we have any other heritage with 4 Paragon gifts, or is that the first
I
one?
have to look. You're putting me on the spot here, Jim. I don't have the spreadsheet open right in front of me.
Pull up the spreadsheet. I mean, if you count the Void Runners Codex, humans got like 6 at this point.
True.
So
That is true.
That's
And
true.
speaking of the Void Runners, this is a class that would work nicely in a Void Runners game or a traditional fantasy game, I think. And
yeah,
Pretty
it
good
feels like this would be kind of, if you were going to have like a really powerful Q-like entity, you could do worse than to use this as the baseline for that and build out from there.
Q from Star Trek: The Next Generation for anybody who
Yep.
is younger than, I guess, 35. Which is not a us, but
Yeah. Yeah, I'm considerably older than 35. I don't know about the rest of you, but
Almost there.
and then we will also be talking about Enzo's publishing imprint, Awesome Games, because he has put out 2 releases since the last recording. So we will talk about both of those later on in the show.
On fire.
yeah.
I feel slow, folks.
You're also running a podcast.
Oh,
Yeah,
I used to do that. I know how much work's involved in one of those. This, what we're doing right now, this is the easy part.
the several hours of editing that I will do tomorrow will, but
Yeah.
And thank you for that.
so, and then lastly but not least, we have by Mark Kenobi a collection of planar ranger archetypes from Rangers Past the Gate. We got the Aspect Warden, a ranger that literally takes on bestial aspects and can be mistaken for lycanthropes. Options include taking aspects from bats to snakes to even insects. So you're gonna have your weird beastie kind of ranger there. Then you have Death's Guide, a ranger that specializes in the undead and resisting necrosis.
Nice.
And then finally, the Mechanist, rangers that fuse with mystic fungi and gain fungal powers. They gain a special like subclass resource called a fungal pool, which they use to power their abilities, and that they get fungal pool points equal to twice their proficiency bonus, so that will scale up as they level.
Best part about doing this is I get to learn about all the cool stuff. That sounds very fun.
Yeah, I bet.
Yes.
That's right up your alley.
Yep.
Okay, so the thing that sticks out to me here is just how much more versatile the A5E Ranger is than the base like O5E one that it was derived from. Pulling the spellcasting out has really given the class more room to breathe and more room to be expanded in interesting directions. So I think this is cool.
Yeah.
I always like new ranger archetypes because of that as well. It's just they are a class that does very interesting things, certainly, and pretty different, I would say, than the like you said, the version that it's technically based off of.
Yeah, they kind of have their own personality instead of feeling like a druid fighter kind of cross, which is where they were before.
Exactly.
It's nice.
Yeah.
Neither
Very cool.
as good as, obviously, because when you,
Exactly.
that's just kind of
Yeah.
how that works. But
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know, I've never met Mark Kenobi, but very frequent contributor to Game Pass Gazette. Lots and lots of articles by him.
tons of articles. This past, but barring Enzo, that's a big row of some of the bigger contributors.
Yeah.
to GPG.
Yeah, and who knows? Maybe Enzo will be joining that rank. You know, he seems pretty enthusiastic. So, guys, definitely off to a fast start. So,
yeah, it's definitely true.
And then upcoming, finally, in the first party roundup section, again, I just wanted to touch that Alpha Star magazine is looking to launch early in July 2025. It will be the Void Runners Codex Sci-Fi Science Fantasy quarterly magazine, whereas Game Pass Gazette currently comes out monthly. The Alpha Star magazine will at least start coming out quarterly. I assume if it does well, they might increase that as well, but I have no special knowledge of that. I just
nor do I.
yeah, exactly. No, I don't think any of us knows there or is able to talk about it at least. So that is launching on Backerkit. We will cover that when that starts.
The classes in Void Runner are really interesting to be how they translate to a fantasy campaign as well. I didn't expect that, and I actually didn't back Void Runner, and I'm still waiting for it to be released because I didn't realize that was going to be the case. But like the Scout, there's one of the other classes I'm not thinking of at the moment that are really interesting to think about in a fantasy campaign.
Yep. Trooper, Scientist, Psi Knight, and then their version of a psionic user, which is it called a Scion? I think it's just called
I think a Scion.
Very
so
cool.
With that, we can now transition into our next segment where we're going to highlight some of Jim's work. So, I wanted to kind of start with the Pod Person Plague book that you have releasing. I think it looks awesome. I love the kind of horror aspects to it. Very creepy crawly in a great way. So I guess, first of all, can you give us just an overview of what it is and kind of what inspired you in creating this?
Sure. So it's very much inspired by the 1970s version of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and then kind of trying to take that in a D&D direction and less of a Jeff Goldblum direction. It was Jeff Goldblum was in the 1970s version, very young Jeff Goldblum. So it's very much the idea of like skinwalkers, doppelgangers, those kinds of things, but the duplicates in this case tend to be or are instead plant people. I really leaned heavily on Josh Gentry's Ecology of Gravitas series. I contacted him. He actually was a great partner in this, very encouraging. So if you're not familiar with that, the idea is you've got a big bad evil guy that instead of it just being yet just another fight with your players, you kind of have an area of the countryside that they control. And so as you get closer and closer to the lair, they control more and more things. You start out with a rumor area, and then they have influence in the area that they actually control. And so you can really kind of spread out. In Josh's releases, he's got a Kalkos hive and a green hag. So let's take the green hag, for example. You can start out with the rumors of the green hag on the edges of her territory. And as you get closer, she has more control and kind of witchy things that you get into. And I love his
trees with eyeballs in them. I remember that one vividly.
Exactly. So I love his 2 product. And once I had kind of gotten onto the idea of doing pod people, I really wanted to take things in that direction. So I contacted Josh. He was absolutely encouraging for me to use his system. And so I built based on that. The whole thing actually started with just an offhand comment by PJ Coffee that in my last product, Roadworthy Pursuits, mentioned that I should fill it out a little bit with a feat or 2. And I somehow thought that what was going to turn into the pod person plague would work as a nice synergy feat chain. And it had my first time trying to write a synergy feat chain, had way too much trying to pack into it. And then it went from there to, oh, hey, maybe I should do this as a cursed item. And then same thing, the cursed item had too many benefits for what I had in mind. So then disease, anyway, it ended up just kind of turning into this. And so it's got, I think 4 new monsters, something like a half dozen templates or variants on existing monsters. It's got 4 new traps. It's got all of that ecology, tons of tables for what you might run into or what the party might get for rumors or misdirection from the pod people in the rumor zone or the influence zone, etc. Talks a lot about how narrators are kind of encouraged to make this an infiltration kind of experience instead of just, hey, I'm going to ignore all the tools in this and they're just going to go and have a combat. It's really, think of it like a module without the rooms or anything. So it's more like a toolkit. It's more like you can make it as big or as small as it's got some level scaling abilities. Like it's going to be an easier thing if it's early in the invasion. So the pod people have invaded a town or a settlement and they haven't gotten very far. That's a lower level kind of thing. You could also make it like county or a duchy, something wider like that, where they've started to hit multiple settlements and maybe characters are able to get some clues over here and some different clues over there. It kind of depends on how it gets scaled. Higher level monsters as they get to later in the invasion, that kind of thing. So lots of levers to pull. That was the idea. Very much horror content. I've got like safety tools, trigger warnings and stuff at the beginning of the product, but it's very I'm a big horror movie fan, so this was really fun to kind of stretch creativity in this direction. It's really
I like how
really
versatile
fun.
it was. I feel like they could sneak up on you and like you won't know until it's too late. Like the narrator can do really fun things with that.
Thank you. Yeah, it was easy to be inspired by that movie. Honestly, don't let the fact that it's a 1970s movie turn you away. It is creepy. It's really a good paranoia, kind of like the John Carpenter's Thing, the same kind of level of paranoia. You don't know who to trust, that kind of thing. But I don't know about you, anybody else listening, but I haven't really experienced that in a D&D campaign, right? Outside of, hey, I've got 1 or 2 NPCs, and of course the DM could be setting me up for something, but for a whole community not knowing who's going to turn on you and stuff, that's the kind of thing that to me that tabletop role-playing games can do that like video game role-playing games can't do. And that's my favorite thing about TTRPGs is kind of exploring those things that no other sort of gaming really can bring to your table.
Okay, so with that, what do you think players, as they're looking at this, right, can get out of this, or what do you think they might like the most?
So, as a player, I would enjoy what I just talked about a different kind of playing experience. But there are a couple things that I put in there for players. I created a new Destiny that actually I wrote up a Destiny for my own player and then realized it would work really well for this. The Destiny is escape. The idea is you have some sort of trauma in your past and you're trying to get away from it. So I tried to make it as flexible as possible. So it could be emotional trauma, you were imprisoned, etc., and you get as inspiration, or as Destiny usually works, you have a source of inspiration. In this case, the source of inspiration is you're escaping from something, finding a way out of being trapped. Could be emotionally trapped, could be a physical dead end, you find the secret door. However, I kind of wrote it so that it's intentionally loose on that. So there are several ways to get inspiration there. Break free from bonds, and then you can spend your inspiration by adding proficiency if you're not already proficient with your charisma or wisdom saving throws, or if you're already proficient with that save, you get added expertise die onto it. So you're self-motivated. You're being able to find your way out of your emotional traps and things is kind of giving you that resolve.
Well, yeah,
And then
seem like some resilience.
yeah. And then last thing on the Destiny, because the other thing I think is actually more exciting. The way to actually fulfill your destiny is to kind of overcome those emotional traps from your past. And like a lot of Destinies, the lists are things that seem kind of impossible. Like for mine, it's find inner peace or pay off your debts that have been plaguing you your whole career with interest, that kind of thing. And then the feature for that is that you get to use the proficiency bonus. Sorry, the proficiency bonus for charisma or wisdom without needing to spend inspiration for it. You just get to use that number of times per long rest, I think is what I went with. The other thing that is exciting for me for players is I followed Grant's lead and I wrote an archetype for the Bloodblade. So I think this is the fourth one that's not in the original release.
Right.
So Jesse's original had 3, I think, from Plant Witch Press. And then Grant wrote 3, and then I wrote another one. So now there's 7. This is the Unsleeping, and this ties right into this product, but I think it'll work well if you're not using Pod Person Plague for other things. The idea is that the pod people have a collective consciousness, a hive mind. And as long as one of them escapes, that the rest of the hive gets wiped out, because they've got a hive mind, that one individual transforms into the big bad evil monster, which I'm going to leave a secret for any players, transforms into the big bad evil monster and starts a new hive and retains all the knowledge, lessons learned, etc. from the previous hive and any knowledge that carried from the hive before that, etc. So they've got this generational iterative learning thing. And so they have experimented, they've created magic items, they're really, really good with plant kind of alchemy. They invented their own flavor of Bloodblade is the point. So they figured out that a lot of times they were getting caught by adventurers and stuff because they don't really feel emotions and they're not terribly good at faking it across an entire settlement. And so their idea was, we're going to experiment, we're going to infuse our essence into somebody so that it's under our control, but it still has its emotions. And what they ended up doing was kind of they created these Bloodblades, but some of the Bloodblades escaped from control, as Bloodblades are kind of wont to do, right? They can't even control themselves. And so they escaped, and they've kind of spread secretly in cities and things, as well as trying to help other Bloodblades escape from pod people. So I probably talked about it a little bit too much, but they have abilities that are kind of tied into everything you'd expect. So there's sleep effects, there's the ability to pass through an enemy square and the enemy doesn't realize that you weren't your friend that passed through there. Kind of ties into the hiding in plain sight thing. They've got psychic damage. The hive mind is kind of a thing that ties into a few things in Pod Person Plague, kind of giving him a taste of the hive mind and stunning you kind of thing. So the Bloodblade archetype, I'm really proud of that. I've actually heard from somebody on the A5E server that they're already going to play my archetype on the campaign, that they're kind of a forever DM that gets to actually play for once, and they just told me they were excited to get to play my archetype. That's fun.
Very nice. And again,
Yeah,
Blood
it's
Plague.
always validating when somebody uses your stuff for real.
Yeah, 100%.
And again, Bloodblade is by Plant Witch Press. Jesse Mullen.
Plant person plague. What? Pot, which what?
Yeah, words.
Awesome. So with that, kind of, what is there for narrators? I feel like there's a lot there, and I don't want to spoil anything. But what would you say might attract them the most to this?
I would say if you haven't seen one of the Ecology of Gravitas systems, you're in for a treat. It's not like anything I've ever seen before. Josh really, the intro to it, he talks about how it's basically like a plug and play module, and then it's just basically like the random dungeon tables, except for this, right? So here are what the minions of the Green Witch are, or in the pod person situation, it's what other monsters might they have made bargains with, how have they infiltrated society. Like one of the things that I really thought was fun was they understand the closeness of churches. So one of the first things they do is to infiltrate churches because there's that trust built in. Or they also understand the strength of adventurers. So if they can convert and make like the local druid a pod person, then that gets them a lot of trust in the community, abilities, that kind of thing. There are a lot of ideas like that, many of them inspired by Josh's previous releases, many by the movie, and many of them I'm proud of. I think that are really, the idea is to kind of spark your creativity. I didn't write encounters. I gave you, here are a bunch of things you can use, a bunch of levers to pull, a bunch of tools.
And as a narrator, that's what I want. Anyways, I read adventures to steal parts of them. I don't really run a full adventure. I need chunks. Give me chunks that I can drop into other places and things like that, and that's what I want.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
I will also say, like, I've been gaming for like 25 years or something like that at this point. I have run one published adventure in that time, and I've been GMing for probably 20 out of those 25 years. So yeah, stuff like the Ecology of Gravitas, way more useful than a big published adventure that I'm not going to run. So
yeah, and if you are not familiar, then tons of tables. That's the main thing you should expect. Hey, what is this rumor zone? What's that all about? Lots of ideas for you to pull from, and obviously randomized, but also you could just pick what flavor is going to work best for your table.
Yeah, and it's interesting. It's like you've probably seen a bunch of other like books of random tables for RPGs. They're out there all over the place. This is so tightly themed. It's all like stuff around this one specific nasty, campaign arc defining threat, and how to, kind of push the tendrils of that into various other parts of your world and create atmosphere and, the sense of foreboding. It's a really cool concept.
Nice.
Yeah, 100%.
Tendrils.
Yeah.
There.
Yep. Tendrils.
Good word choice, Peter.
And like Peter said, they're very very tightly knit. Like, so the idea was, I read Josh's product and what creatures a Green Witch might associate with, or might the Kalkos use to their advantage, manipulate, and things like that. And those were, of course, direct inspirations for me. So you're going to see a lot of that in my product too. But that whole thinking of it is almost like they create their own ecosystem to their own advantage. They've got humans they're blackmailing and stuff, and or bribing, and other creatures that they have like uneasy truces with, and the whole system has just got that kind of mindset to it of, this is an area where this big bad controls it, and how would they do that?
Like taking regional effects from a legendary monster and dialing it
Yeah.
1,000. Yeah.
Yeah, and
exactly.
whenever my poor unfortunate players decide to start exploring the massive, like, malevolent forest that's part of their holding, I'll be using material from that and the Green Hag one.
For sure.
So
then did you want to touch real quick on your expansion to Roadworthy Pursuits?
Sure. I'll try to keep this brief because I know we've got a ton of stuff you were trying to cover.
We are running a little long today, but I knew that was happening, so that's okay.
Cool. So my last release was Roadworthy Pursuits, which is kind of focused on exploration. Two things. I'd like to really quickly talk about the thing in there that's probably the thing I'm the most proud of writing in general, and then talk about why I'm doing kind of an expansion for it. So the idea with Roadworthy Pursuits in general, the original release was it's 11 new journey activities. So not the exploration challenges, but the actual activities your party can do while they're traveling. And the idea is that I focused for this release on things that you can't do around settlements. They're more wilderness kind of focused exploration challenges. And then in addition to that, the main thing that I'm excited about is supply dice. So my table doesn't really like the tracking of supply. That's just sort of bookkeeping to us. And no, not pointing fingers or saying it's just a different play style, but it's baked so much into A5E that you're going to be tracking supply. You've got character abilities based around that and stuff, that in order to kind of pull that out, and pulling it out didn't really work. It just sort of nullified a bunch of abilities. So I had to kind of come up with something for my own table for replacing supply. And so the idea is basically I took A5E's expertise die system and made that represent supply. And so I went with something that I think kind of got a little bit more word of mouth than actual mechanics of supply equaling having the right equipment at the right time and all of that as well. So not just food and water. So the idea with supply dice is you can spend a supply die. You can't buy them like you would normally buy supply, but you can spend them like you would to add expertise to anything else, even if you already have expertise. And they scale up just like an expertise die. So if you get 2 supply dice from something, it's a D6 supply die. They factored in everything from weight of supply equaling supply dice. What do you get when you gain supply on a journey? What happens when you lose supply dice and you don't have them? That kind of thing. So that was the basic system, but in trying to use it in play, the reason for the expansion is that it was kind of having to calculate things on the fly. I gave some examples, but not having, hey, for this exploration challenge, this is what you should get, was a little awkward. And so the idea with the expansion is basically just going through and having every exploration challenge in Trials and Treasures. And then I added all of them from Sarah Breyfogle's Stranger Sites as well. Every class ability and every origin feature that involves supply was already in the original, but now I've expanded that to include Dungeon Delvers and Void Runners origins and classes. Any features there that involve supply, kind of covered that for supply dice. So that's the idea behind the expansion. And it's going to be basically just all previous owners. It's just going to be a new addition with the expansion. It's not going to be a separate purchase or anything. It's what I learned on layout and things. So it's the way that I wish the product had been when I originally released it. So it's just the real version, the expanded edition.
Fair enough. I like that you're becoming quickly the melting pot of everybody's stuff, kind of, in your work, and I really appreciate that.
Thanks. And the last thing I want to say about supply dice real quick, because again, it's my favorite thing I've done so far, is you can use it as a reaction. You can give it to somebody else, kind of like you would with inspiration. You can spend a supply die, but to give it to another character as a reaction to their bad roll, to their being hit with an attack or something like that. It's everything from adding to their roll to adding to their armor class at the last minute. You throw the flying pan at the last second, frying pan in the way, and block the sword. That's the kind of thing. So again, it's replacing the actual supplies we have for A5E, but kind of that having the right thing at the right time and making it a little bit more fun and like a power for players, instead of a penalty and a bookkeeping thing. Again, just different play styles. It's for my table, this is a lot more fun, and I figured I couldn't be the only one, and I was writing the system anyway, so why not publish it?
Yeah, it's where a lot of good ideas come from.
That's right.
I bet.
All right. And so when are these releasing for Variant Codex Press here?
Pod Person Plague, I am this close. I have one drawing I want to do, and then outside of that, I'm on my very, very final proofreading, and then I'm good to go. I've got everything else complete. So that should be hopefully by this weekend. So today, as we're recording this, is the 19th. So hopefully no later than the 22nd, excuse me. And then Roadworthy Pursuits Expanded is all done except for I'm just going to be starting layout. So within the next couple weeks on that.
Perfect. So keep your eyes peeled for those, and especially the first one, Pod Person Plague, coming out probably by the time you see this. So, or thereabouts at least. So it depends on how fast I'm gonna edit. But, and then will those two releases have Foundry implementation? Since we had Nair on,
yes,
I want to make sure I'm asking these questions too.
Yeah, they definitely will. I've already got the module back from the Foundry folks for Pod Person Plague. And then once, and I just got the last of my balance feedback from Rory. Well, Rory mentioned in the last podcast and stuff for the Roadworthy Pursuits expanded stuff. So I just need to actually send that over to the Foundry folks and they'll do a module for me for that. So yes, for both.
All right.
Actually, you want to talk about people who are in a lot of A5E releases. Rory Madden has been the balance consultant for the whole community of third-party people. Yeah.
For all of us. Rory will actually be on the next episode guesting with Jesse Mullins of Plant Witch Press. My goodness, that is hard to say.
That's going to be a fun episode.
So
Yeah.
we will have Rory to pick Rory's brain about what it's like being a balance consultant for all of us third-party people. So who all have very different styles in a lot of ways, and very different game philosophy and all that. So
I think to Peter's point, I think Rory's kind of the unsung hero of the 3PP designer community for A5E. I mean, he doesn't. I think we do him a disservice by just saying balance consultant, to be honest, because he's creative in his feedback. A lot of times his ideas of, hey, this doesn't really work, but what about this? And his ideas are wonderful. So really,
usually if he's got something he doesn't like, he usually has an alternative right there. And if he doesn't, if you ask him about it, he'll think about it and come up with something. Yeah. And also, if you want to see some of his design, I know Clark doesn't want us to say who did which section, but he was one of the designers for Venture Forth too. So he's done some design as well as helping us with all of ours. So
I can absolutely see it. Yeah. Very creative person.
Yeah.
All right. So now, which one of our guests would like to say the next segment, which is
the Mimic Mimo?
Mimic. See, this is why I've been having you do it.
Mimo!
The magic mimic moment, I wanted to make it harder.
That would be way harder.
Just to torture people a little bit.
Magnificent
magical mimic moment of I'm running out. My ability to alliterate has reached its terminus here.
So that is our third-party roundup, and boy howdy, is this a good time to be into A5E, because we are feasting, folks. As mentioned, Jim Temple of the Variant Codex Press talked about the Pod Person Plague coming out probably at least maybe the day you see this or the day after you see this. And then the expanded version of Roadworthy Pursuits, also by Variant Codex Press, coming in a few weeks, probably before the next episode of our early July. So keep your eyes peeled for those. Links will be available in the show notes. I'm kind of doing this in a quasi chronological order since the last show, but Peter, that's you. You're up.
Yep.
Yeah.
I've released the second single class synergy volume. Came out yesterday as we're recording this. So that is out there. That covers the Esper, Ranger, Scholar, Warlock, and Wielder classes. And the title was surprisingly controversial over in the End World forums the first time I released it. But suffice to say, they are basically single class emphasis feats. They're structured like synergy feats. They pretty much work like them. You'll get they're like a half feat where you get an ability score bonus that's relevant to the class. And then there's some additional benefits that kind of feed into that core class flavor. So,
and it's real good. The cover is stunning, as all of your covers tend to be. So
There's good stock art out there. I wish could say I was the illustrator, but I'm not. It's
Well,
Dean
fair enough.
Spencer.
You're good at making covers. Peter did make the cover for my first release, which was Corrosive Souls. So credit where it's due. You did pretty good with that, even if
Yeah.
it's stock art is the focus of that. But yeah,
Well, I do a bit of graphic design. I'm actually in school for it. So
paying
Yeah.
off.
Absolutely.
But yeah, like you said, core classes covered, Ranger and Warlock in that, and then 3-party publishing classes, the Esper from Rachel Williamson, the Scholar from Lars Torgerson, and the Wielder from Andrew Engelbright.
Yep.
I
That's a fun
apologize if
combo.
I pronounced your name wrong.
yeah, I there's like an even number of first and third party ones left after the core 4. So I was like, well, I'm going to break these up into groups of 5. It's like it's going to have to be either 2 and 3 or 3 and 2, first and third party. So next time it'll be a couple of third party and 3 first. So the next one will be Druid, Herald, Adept, Witch, and the new champion class in martial artistry that's currently being crowdfunded for Rachel Williamson.
Over on Backerkit. And if you remember,
Yep.
if you want to hear more about martial artistry, Rachel was our guest author on the last episode. So go and check that out if you want to hear more. It is currently crowdfunding again on Backerkit.
Yeah, and if you want to give me a real challenge, help her meet her stretch goals so that I've got 2 more classes to throw into the mix.
Right.
Plus, you want to see those. Like Rachel does
you
good
do.
work.
They're pretty neat. Like, get out. If
Yeah.
you haven't backed that yet, get out and back it. It's so good, folks. And
Well, let me put it to you this way. Rachel is the person who solved psionics and voodoo doll spells. Both.
you did.
You want to see the stuff that she does.
Yeah. And Rachel's been involved in a lot of the third-party releases that were not releasing them herself. So she's got a huge volume of work that you wouldn't know if you just look up Steampunkette on Drive-Thru RPG. She's done a ton of work.
She was
Really,
my
really
collaborator
solid.
on Spells from the Forgotten Vault. She's going to be my collaborator on the Forgotten Vault Unlocked. She contributed to Manual of Adventurous Resources. She came up with the idea of motif classes, that is in system architecture motif classes. She's a powerhouse.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
She was involved in Sarah's new Splendid Souvenirs.
Yep.
Oh, Splendid, which we
She's
are.
responsible for the Void Runners Codex being called the Void Runners Codex.
That's awesome.
So,
Yeah.
If you're not sure if you've liked Steampunkette's work, you have. You
definitely have.
you have.
You've seen it. You went, that was cool, and you've stuck it in your game.
So go back her product.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we want this to stay financially viable for her, so she keeps doing it.
That's right.
So,
Yeah.
She is that good.
100%.
Yeah.
All right, and then like we mentioned, we had 2 new releases from brand new third-party publisher in A5E, Awesome Games, which you can also find on Drive-Thru RPG as Awesome Edition. First release was a pay-what-you-want title called The Palette of Heroes, which includes 3 new archetypes covering Bard, Artificer, and Herald. They are all themed around art and artistic expression. The Bard is a painting bard. The Artificer is a fireworks manufacturer or creator. And Herald is, again, coming back to the theme of the kind of this episode is clown stuff. But yeah, it's a herald of clowning, and it's pretty interesting. I was not sure how that would fit as a herald, but it fits shockingly well. So
it's a surprisingly versatile class. It's not
is.
just the old paladin anymore.
It's not.
Right.
It's
It's a really impressive first release for a new publisher. It's really fun. I love it.
It is. It's really fun. Yeah. And then coming out yesterday, as of the recording, again, we're recording on June 19th, but Awesome Games just put out Fable of Flames, which adds a fire-themed all the way up to level 8 motif class. that's a bit of a gish melee spellcaster type, but very fire themed. And it's a full motif class release, as well as
I love that.
as well as a couple of archetypes in there. I don't have those in front of me because I was not sure that was going to come out as soon as it did.
Yeah.
Got caught a little flat-footed on this one. Yeah, I haven't had a chance to pick it up and look at it either.
Usually drive-through takes as much as 5 days for a new publisher to approve it, and they got it out a little faster than I think even Enzo was ready for it. So.
Yeah.
But there are some cool new all fire themed archetypes. Again, both these, The Palette of Heroes and Fable of Flames by Awesome Games, you'll find links in the show notes. And a special surprise, I forgot I had backed this, at least when I got the email, but Splendid Souvenirs by Sarah Breyfogle came out, which was launched on Kickstarter and is now newly available to everybody, including on DriveThruRPG. Link in the show notes. And it's tons of new magic items, including new rare variants for spells, which you can pick up as scrolls or what have you, or just strip them from their item and just add them to your magic item or your rare spell lists anyway. For those of you that aren't familiar with A5E's rare spell systems, they are basically spells you can kind of learn as treasure that do something a little different from the base spell, and they do not count against the spells you have known.
I was just going to say that release has a ton of additional stuff. It has like mundane treasure lists. It has new rules that Lars did for Lars Torgensen for sentient items. Like you mentioned, tons of new spells and magic items that are really, really fun. It's great. I love it.
And again, Sarah Breyfogle, Lars Torgensen, and Rachel Williamson all worked on that book as well. So speaking of Steampunkette. And then again,
speaking of dream teams too, all three of those
are
really good.
I know.
Yeah, that's like showing up as the Harlem Globetrotters against the the local beer league team. That's
yeah.
And speaking of Steampunkette, we have Martial Artistry, which she has launched through Backerkit. It is danger close to hitting its funding goal. Still pretty far from its stretch goals, so get in there. I want those other classes, folks.
Yeah.
Also, I believe last I checked this morning, there were still 3 spots for that custom art pledge level. I couldn't quite make my budget work for that. So, but if some of you are more liquid than me, that would be a really cool thing to get in the book.
Yeah.
Really fun.
So again, link for that will be in the show notes. And if you want to hear more about martial artistry, again, check out the last episode of A5 Evening, where she was our author guest. And then finally, in the third-party release, we're finally getting towards the end, folks. Bear with us. We have 100 Acre Hell by Mike Myler, which successfully funded on Kickstarter. And it's an adventure and monster collection now that Winnie the Pooh is in the public domain. So if you want really weird Winnie the Pooh themed stuff, you got it. Mike took care of it.
And you don't want to have to go through the layer of like obfuscation that Robin Laws did for GURPS Fantasy 2, The Madlands, if anybody knows that deep cut.
And that will have Castle Foundry support and Roll20 support. And it successfully funded about a week or 2 ago. So that is a mea culpa on mine. I forgot to mention it on the last episode, so I'm mentioning it now. Plus, you can late back it as well. So, link in the show notes.
Perfect.
Going back to the horror thing and the really creepy cover on his product.
Yeah, that does have a really creepy cover.
Yeah. That is unsettling, that cover.
I'm going to look it up.
It's like my childhood. What happened?
My childhood is coming for me with many fangs.
Okay, so any thoughts?
I mean, I'll say the two things that I'm most eager to get my hands on are Jim's release, because I do have an evil haunted forest in my campaign, and of course Rachel's. Like, I've already seen some preview material for it, so I can start working on supporting stuff. But there's no substitute for getting the final thing in your hands. So
All
I
right.
think I'm probably the most excited about Rachel's book as well. I mean, it's just huge compared to a lot of I'm not talking necessarily page count, but idea and scope of it. I mean, martial artistry, it's basically what can we do for martial classes? It's everything. I mean, Rachel did the last episode. I don't need to recap that, but I'm
yeah,
saying that it's
but I
so
mean, she's even got stuff like social combat and stuff in there. Like, it's
uh-huh.
really broad.
That mass combat, all
Specific
the thing I
injury.
really wanted to mention while she was here and I forgot, but all the cool accessibility magic items.
Yeah.
There. So she's
Yeah.
got a version of a combat wheelchair. She's got these things.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so. And as a disabled person, I appreciate it. I love it. I feel seen. It's awesome. Plus, they're fun looking. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
for martial artistry, that is being currently funded right now, but she will release the PDFs to backers basically as soon as the campaign ends. So, get ready for that to come out basically in a month or less. So,
Yeah, this won't be one of those Kickstarters where the stretch goals take forever to write. Those two classes that are the stretch goals are written.
very good
So
point.
they're,
Very good point.
yeah.
Yep.
So make it happen for us.
She's got it all ready to go, so just throw money at her, please.
Yeah.
That concludes the third party roundup, the mimic moment, or everybody.
Mimo?
Mimo.
All right, and we have a little bit of time to hit a discussion topic today. We wanted to talk about hindrance dice, yes? Because
So this one's
yeah, go ahead.
this one's my fault. As you probably know if you're listening to this podcast, Level Up Advanced 5e has the concept of expertise dice, and they originally replaced the expertise mechanic from A5E, which was just a static doubling of your proficiency bonus, to a die that can scale a little bit more and adds an additional layer of randomness and stuff, which is great. It's a fantastic mechanic. It's really versatile. And it would be even more versatile if there was an opposing penalty mechanic, kind of like advantage and disadvantage. And there's not. I kind of understand why there isn't, especially because I was there when the system was put together. They wanted to not introduce too many new concepts because there's things like maneuvers and knacks and rare spells and all of the other cool stuff that makes A5e A5e. But boy, sure having like a static term for a scaling minus 1d4 penalty that goes up by a die step every time you get another instance of it would really be handy.
Yeah.
So
it's a great idea.
That kind of goes with your upcoming release, or well, expanded release, I suppose. Roadworthy Pursuits. Sorry, my tongue is back.
Yeah. I mean, like Peter said, the expertise die is such a solid system. I mean, there are some questions about it once in a while, that some weird edge cases and things, but just the core idea of it is so straightforward once it clicks with you, that nobody has, at least nobody at my tables, have questions about it, except for, like I said, the very odd edge case. It's your D4 scales to D6, scales to D8, etc., and caps unless you have special abilities. And it kind of takes the 3.0 or 3.5 D&D concept of stacking and overlapping skills and just simplifies all of that, right? Or bonuses, instead of these kind of bonuses stack and these don't. It's a lot more elegant way to do all of that, I think.
Allie, you're a player. You're probably the one real player that we have here. How do you like expertise dice?
You know, I will say I'm pretty new to A5e, so I feel like I just absorb as you all talk. I don't know. They are fun. I do like that there's certain specialties that I have that, and then there's still that chance element rather than just being outrageously good at something, right? Like, I might roll a 1 on my expertise die versus like a 4 or a 6 or whatever. So I do like that it gives that nuance a little bit. But yeah, I'm still very much learning. I don't get a lot of expertise die yet. So it's still kind of
Oh, you will.
I hope so.
Allie is coming over from one of my O5E tables and is now joining the A5E tables now that I'm moving basically everything to just A5E because I like it more. So
Cool.
well, how do you feel about a hindrance dice?
See, I'm still learning.
Okay.
I like the concept. The thing I like about A5E is the nuance that it adds so much more, that it gives depth and can you can either add or again hindrance take. Right? Like I think it adds more depth to the game, more chance, and I do appreciate that.
Slightly new part of a segment.
Oh yeah, this is something I wanted to do to close out because I think it's fun. And Peter, you actually helped me make my favorite A5E character, my Berserker, with your archetype, the Bringer of Bedlam. So what I think would be fun to close out is have everybody tell me what your favorite character you've ever played is, or if you're the Eternal DM, maybe who you would like to play, or an NPC or something, just for a fun kind of closing. So yeah, make you think.
So what is today's answer here?
Right?
It changes. That's why I'm a DM. That's what NPCs are for.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. See, right? Yeah.
You can pick an NPC, I'll allow it.
Okay, you know what? Honestly, like right now, if today's answer, there's a variation of the new champion class in martial artistry that's the mystic champion. It's one of the archetypes. I think probably one of those is the thing that's really got me like, ooh, this is an interesting thing that I'd really like to play right now, because it's got a little bit of that kind of like mysticy Knight Templar kind of, it's a warrior, but there's a little bit of kind of like this subtle magic under it. It's not like a full spellblade kind of thing, but you can do some magic like in between your combats and stuff like that, and it's interesting. It's very kind of, it's mystical rather than just like a devastating battlefield presence with spells and blades at the same time.
That does sound very fun.
It's really neat.
I always like a balance between
Champion is such a cool class. I'm so excited.
It really
is.
Jim, what do you got?
My answer is kind of complicated. So we had some of the designers had gotten together and started a campaign, and it ended up falling apart. Real world got in the way. But I did roll up a scholar for it, Lars's scholar class. And that was really interesting to think about, the squishiness of a first level character probably extending beyond first level. If you're not familiar with the scholar, the thing is that you just get a ton of feats. That's kind of the thing. It's knowledge. And so you do have a bunch of skills and everything, but you're not ever a spellcaster. So that just sort of turns into feats, and thinking about how the character, what feats are going to build off of what to that level is a really interesting thing that I don't think a lot of other A5E classes or archetypes get into. So that was a really different way to think about building a character that I thought. I was disappointed that I only got to play a single session with that one character, but I would love to get back
to us, folks. Scheduling is the final boss of all RPGs.
Yeah, it's like the most fearsome villain is always this stupid adult schedule.
But yeah,
let's try and get a bunch of middle-aged people with children and responsibilities and day jobs together on a consistent basis. I'm sure that will be fine.
Yeah,
yeah.
Sprinkle some disability on top of that.
Yeah. Have somebody on call, some COVID in there,
Right. What about you, Grant? Since you haven't answered this yet.
Let's see. So, class I would love to play, since you guys are doing that pretty revolutionary campaign leg that's coming up in our home campaign, Champion Revolutionary seems really cool.
Okay.
Just kind of, but like even more street toughy kind of. Just I don't know. It feels like it would be cathartic right now too. So
cool.
But I don't know. Favorite NPC recently. There was that one bartender with that terrible Russian accent that made bathtub gin, and he was actually from the 20s, but you guys were playing in probably around the 800s AD. but he was from the 1920s, and they don't know that he was out of time. But he was.
Okay, when we go back to that campaign. I think he almost killed me with his bathtub gin at one point.
You glad you rolled some good saves.
Perfect. I appreciate it because I like the personality test to just kind of learn about people and why they pick certain things. It's fun. So I appreciate you all sharing.
All right.
You're looking at the gin bottle. It's like, why is this gin bush topiaried into a skull? This seems bad. Juniper bushes don't usually look like skulls.
Might be a red flag.
Yeah.
Metal. I don't know.
Yeah. He was a cool NPC.
All right.
So what was your favorite character, Allie?
Oh, yeah, Allie.
I feel like I just started playing D&D during COVID. It was like a COVID hobby, if you will. I might like my Berserker, because I describe it as a gerbil that got too close to the microwave.
Oh, no.
There's a lot of other elements to it, but I wanted something that was resilient and tough, but also a little bit like out of control. You never knew what was going to happen. And so, like, magic just kind of happening, that character is my favorite. Because I like a weird little guy, right? Where I can kind of, like I said, do bits and have fun, but also have some really fun mechanics that keep Grant on his toes.
Wild magic will do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's fun for me, too, because your narrator is also a player, and they also kind of like to be surprised. Most of the time, I would say.
Yeah.
I guess it depends on the narrator, but I like to be surprised.
100%.
All right. Well, that's
where the fun happens.
Yeah, that is where the fun happens. That is pretty much this session of A5Evening. Jim, where can people find you? And we'll plug in on the in the show notes as well.
Oh, okay. Drive-Thru RPG. Also, I've got a Blue Sky account. I'm just planning for it to be talking about my stuff and sharing stuff from my other third-party creators.
Perfect.
Great stuff out there. Lots of good products.
Yep. And it ain't over yet, folks. Then between now and the next one is going to be a lot of releases too. So it's the best time, I think, to be an A5E fan since the system kind of came
100%.
out, really. So, Peter, how about you? Where can we find you?
Purple Martin Games has a website at purplemartin.games, and I'm on Drive-Thru RPG. I do not have a social media presence.
And you also just wrote an article for Gnome Stew as well, which we can link off.
I did, yeah. I wrote an article about rescue operations for Gnome Stew recently, and I'm around on Discord and stuff a little bit, but yeah.
And that rescue article helped inspire...
I was gonna say. Yeah. That sounds familiar, Grant.
It's a great article, Peter.
Thank you.
It's
really good
for people that want to check it out. It is. I recommend going reading it, but it is just an article about making D&D kind of sing in another genre, kind of, which is another type of mission types or what have you, which is where the goal is not to defeat everybody, but to maybe rescue a civilian or whatever. And there could be dangerous people lurking around or trying to find. Peter, I don't know why I'm explaining this when I have you right here.
Basically, the idea is that a rescue operation can have a lot of different parameters. You can be rescuing people from hostile forces, natural disasters, their own stupidity, some combination of those, multiples at the same time, different types of environments. I kind of went through and did like a small toolkit of ideas and just mix and match and make the rescue scenario that works best for your group and have at it. So, and I would also recommend Gnome Stew in general. It's a fantastic RPG advice blog.
It is. And they have a pretty good podcast as well. So.
They do.
Okay, and then we will attach all the links of anything you heard about today in the show notes or the footnotes. You can find us on Blue Sky as well. We'll link off to that, and on Instagram as well at _A5E.
Yep.
We'll get the link for that when I get the link for that. Allie handles our Instagram. I handle the Blue Sky.
Blue Sky.
Division of labor.
Yep. You can also find anything from Broken Synapse Press, which currently is Corrosive Souls, out on Drive-Thru RPG. You can also make use of, and please do, the A5E data sheet, which is a massive Google workbook that basically we try to point you to literally everything that exists for A5E out there in one place, and it will lead you to the links for the authors of their products, or if things have wound their way into Foundry under those agreements, as well as
One real quick note on the data sheet is we're usually pretty up to date. Usually not too long after something launches, we get it all in the data sheet. So if you really want to see what's in something, that's a good source if you're not getting enough information on Drive-Thru RPG. We try to give a few extra details about what an archetype is like and that kind of thing. So
yep, and you can always, there's a credits page on that. You can always email us on that credits page and find the people that make the data sheet work and all of our stuff.
One other thing that I'll note about that is all of the designers use that data sheet very extensively.
There's a reason I took it over and then brought
yeah,
in.
We need that spreadsheet.
Yeah, once Clark got too busy with Clark's upcoming Kickstarter release, and Clark will be on the show in August to talk about that. Yeah, he passed the reins over to me because I was kind of doing that on my own for my table, because I basically have everything digitally, and I want them to have, access to all of the things, and I can kind of curate it, editorialize, and add spell schools that didn't get added originally. And I'm like, well, that kind of thing. But on the data sheet, the official one, I don't do any of my editorializing. It is all as it is. So thanks for joining us tonight. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Good to put
thank you
faces
both for
to
doing
names and meet you.
I know. I don't know if I've ever seen either of you before. So
You have not. I'm pretty confident this is the first time I've done a video call with anybody from the third-party community.
fair
So.
enough. All right.
Yeah.
All right.
It's been fun. Thank you, folks.
And join us next episode for Jessie Mullins of Plant Witch Press, talking about her new book, Out of the Wilds, as well as Rory Madden, the go-to balance consultant. Just like Jim said, consultant's not enough, but Rory will be joining us. So catch you next time, all on A5 Evening.